Hello, everybody. How are you doing? This is Vida, your friendly neighborhood Climax Consultant, here to help you talk about sex. Because honestly, everyone out there wants more sex. They just don't know how to talk about it. So we are going to do that today. And if you have questions, I'm here to answer. So feel free to put them in the comments and we will answer your questions. So starting out, how do you talk about sex? When you go, and this isn't even with your partner, when you go to the doctor, are you awkward when you talk about sex? Do you have slang terms for things? You're like, there's something going on in the downstairs area. Some people lower their voice. Some people blush. Some people get really awkward. And this is with a medical professional, right? You're there to ask this doctor questions about your health, and people get really awkward. So fast forward to a different time in your life. You are with a partner, you're with a guy, you're with a girl, you've convinced them to take their clothes off in the same room as you, and you get down to the nitty-gritty, and you probably still haven't had a conversation about sex. Although my caveat is that so many people are good, maybe sexters. Lots of people do the texty thing. And they have tons of conversations about sex, but it's really just dirty talking stuff, right? And it's low hanging fruit when you're first dating. But when you get down to it and you actually have sex, how do you talk about it? Like, how many times a week do you want to have sex? And is it the same amount as your partner? It's generally not. So anybody out there that's listening, what is the number well, I guess, how much do you want to have sex in a week? Every day of the week? 5 times? 3 times? I think the average, the American average, we can always Google it, but the last time I looked, the average was once. It may be more. I think a lot of people shoot for 3. And then a lot of people are like, no, I want to have sex every single day, right? Every single day. Hello, Maria. How are you doing? Hey, Walt. I'm excited for y'all to be here on this new show, the Climax Consultant. We are talking about sex and how do you talk about it and how much do you want it? So if you decided you wanted sex more in your relationship, how would you ask for it? How would you ask for it? And are you afraid of getting shot down? Because that's a lot of people, right? I want to have, let's see. Do you want the American average, right? Do you want once a week tired sex? Most people don't. So I like to redefine sex, right? If you're just looking at, hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Any questions you have, throw them in there. We'll get to them. I have a few to start us off. So we were talking about how many times a week do you want sex, and do you shoot for the American average, which I think is once. And that is like an average. There are people knocking it out of the park like multiple times a day, 7 days a week. And there are people that have a big none, 0. But I think, and what I have talked to clients before about, and by clients, I mean that I do work as a sex and intimacy coach, and I also have a comedy sex podcast on top of this one. So, I could be the Climax Consulate, Jason. That might be cool too. So if you want to have sex more, than the once a week. You have to redefine your definition of sex, right? It's not just penetrative sex, right? It's not just penetrative sex. So does masturbation count? Does mutual masturbation count? Does watching a dirty movie together count? Like, what counts as sex for you? Because if you're only defining it as penetration, then you're missing out on a lot of stuff. So I like to have people kind of come up with like an intimacy menu, right? Figure out what counts as sex and then shoot for 3 times a week, but pick something off the menu. So if it is penetrative sex, fine. If it's mutual masturbation, fine. If it is watching a dirty movie together or reading a book out loud, are you having sex of the mind instead of the body? Like, what are you doing? Okay. Walt said he'd rather spend time at the gym, which is a different kind of, satisfaction, endorphins, all that good stuff. But, I don't have time to go to the gym and have sex. So you just have to pick one. All right. Next question. I looked up the top sex questions that couples normally answer, but you know what? Screw that. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody out there have anything that they want to ask? Because, in the anonymity of the internet, people get really bold and ask things like, do you like to be spanked? And how do you ask your partner to do that? Because there's only so much the internet research will get you. Sometimes it'll get you into some really weird areas of the internet. And so you can ask somebody. And guess what? You can ask me. Or I can look it up if I don't know. But, that's just one of the many services that's offered here. Okay, moving on. Well, I guess I should answer that. If you like to be spanked, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a right and wrong way to be spanked. And you can actually look that up, the right and wrong way to spank someone. You can't spank in the kidney areas. You don't need to spank like around the stomach and stuff. You really kind of need to focus on the meat of the rump. And then you need to, and then you can also go like down the backs of the thighs, but down the backs of the thighs, oh, that is the worst. That person is going to think about you quite a bit the next day because it's really tender back there. Yes. Brian says he doesn't hit that hard, which you need to hit hard enough to make it sting. Mike says, how do I ask out a coffee barista without it being awkward? That's a good question. I mean, have you been into the coffee shop multiple times? Do y'all have a rapport, or are you just super random? If you have a rapport, Mike, then you should, say like, hey, you're awesome to talk to when we come in, and I would love to take you to dinner. Would you like to go to dinner with me? Or a movie, like whatever your banter is, right? There is rapport. Okay. So whatever your banter is, like it could be comic books, it could be, or maybe it's just coffee related. I don't know. Do you want to ask her like, hey, do you want to get out of here and go get a cup of coffee? Which I know it's silly, but, maybe it'll make her laugh. If you can make a girl laugh, she'll generally be more inclined to go out with you because being funny is disarming. Let's see. I hope that helped. Let me know if it did. Let's see. Jason says, the last girlfriend I had claimed she wanted to marry me. She was still with another guy. I doubt that would have led to a healthy marriage. 100%, Jason. I don't think that would have led to a healthy marriage either. Like, I mean, honestly, anytime people are in a relationship, I think if they're going to end it, then they need to go to therapy before they start a new one. But that's just a personal opinion on that. All right. Maria says, trying new things and being open. You can learn more by letting your mate, partner, husband, wife, just be adventurous. I agree. Be open-minded. So when they come to you with a question, because one, it takes a lot of guts to ask a sex question, right? Don't immediately shut them down unless it's something that's like a hard limit, right? Like hard limits are things that you're absolutely never going to try. And soft limits are things you're like, maybe. Let's think about this some more. Let's talk about it some more. So if they come to you with a hard limit, you can just be like, babe, I'm sorry, that's a hard limit, but maybe there's something else we can explore together that might satisfy some of that, right? A lot of people, hard limits are threesomes. A lot of people, hard limits are scat play. So you just have to know what your hard limits are. And sometimes you don't know what they are until it is presented to you, right? Until your partner comes and asks you a question, you're like, oh, dang, no, I'm not into that, right? But you have to have rapport with your partner too, to be able to say, yes, I am 100% down. Go get that slip and slide in the baby oil and I'll be there. Or no, I'm not into that. If the barista says no, do you ever return to that coffee house? Aw, Mike. Yeah, I mean, I would, but it depends on how you leave it, right? What happens is people ask someone out and it's kind of awkward. And then they say no, and they're like, well, I have to find another coffee house. If you want to find another coffee house, you can. As long as when you go back in, like, let's hypothetically say she says no, and you go in there the next day, you just like, if she's waiting on you, like, hey, how's it going? And you just go right back to your coffee order rapport, right? You don't make it creepy and awkward. Don't stare at her. Don't get the manager called on you. Just be like a normal guy and you'll be okay. Well, okay. Maybe not a normal guy. Be better than a normal guy. And you'll be okay. All right. Maria says, create the atmosphere for it. 100%. You have to create an atmosphere with your partner, whether it's long-term, short-term, or for the night. You need to create an atmosphere where it is okay to ask questions. Because in all walks of life, I can't speak for other countries of the world, but it seems like a lot of times in the United States, we don't like people to ask questions. We want people to just either read our mind or just go with the flow, right? But people that ask questions are generally seen as problematic. But in your bedroom, you should be able to ask questions like, hey, why do you have a mask and that rope? If you haven't talked about role play, maybe don't bring that out yet. But, I am not a doctor. I'm not a professional therapist or any of that. I am an educator and I have been for a very long time. And I work also as a sex and intimacy coach, and I work as a neurodivergent coach. So I'm really good at coaching people through social situations. And that's really what sex is. It's a social situation. Okay. How would you feel about trying new things in the bedroom? Is that the question you start with to create the atmosphere? If you want to come up with something new, I think that it is better Okay, Monte has a question like, how do you recognize or confuse sexual tension? All right. So this is a good one. You can just ask. And yes, that's not sexy. Okay. But I feel like more people would end up in HR less if they would just ask questions, right? And there are lots of people that are like, no, you can't ask that. Like, hey, are you hitting on me? If they say no, at least they're not, right? Or maybe they're, hey, are you flirting with me? Whatever. But just ask. You know, uh, I got into lots of situations as a young woman where I just assumed that there was something going on, and that wasn't what was going on. It didn't have to be a sexual thing. It's just we make assumptions, and that's where everything gets off the rails. Books and movies would be over in either the first chapter or the first 5 minutes if people asked a question. Ask a question, clarify the situation, and wacky shenanigans will not ensue that lead to a 2.5-hour movie. That's just the truth. So if you feel like there is sexual tension with someone and you feel like you felt that way a couple times, you can just ask. I mean, I'm pretty direct about things. Like, hey, are you hitting on me? And then they're like, oh, no, I wasn't hitting. Like, okay, thanks for clearing that up. And then I just go on about it, right? So I think that's easier. Jason says, all I know is if I go in a woman's bedroom and her vibrator has a kickstart, I'm running like the Flash out the front door. Well, you could see it like that. That's one method you could do. Or you could say like, show me how you use this thing. Because as long as she's not using it on you, you're good to go. Maybe that thing gets her in the mood and then you can finish the job. I think a lot of people are very intimidated by sex toys. And I think you should just use them as like a pinch hitter, right? You need to use them as like, I don't know, what do you call it? I mean, it's a performance enhancing thing, right? It's a performance enhancing thing. So her vibrator is not your enemy. It is your buddy. Use it on her. And then she's going to be more inclined to do the next part of that activity, which is let you touch her boobies. So you ask her. And if you don't want to use it on her, if you're intimidated, ask her to use it and let you watch. And then you'll know what she likes. Takes all the guesswork out of it. Okay. Let's see. Maria says, you have to be honest and direct and just say what you feel. I agree. Be honest and direct. Say what you feel. But people generally have a problem with that. People are afraid to be honest and direct because they're afraid of rejection, or they're carrying around some deep-seated shame about sex. But again, life would be easier if people would just say what they want or ask for what they want or be open to a discussion about, okay, this is what I want and you're not into it, but what about this? What about that? Because the end goal is for everyone to get off, right? So if that's your end goal, just keep that in mind. I'm glad y'all think I'm dropping some knowledge on you. This is the first show. This is the inaugural show, right, for the Climax Consultant. So it's a little helter-skelter. I was going to have all these fabulous questions to go off of, but I prefer the audience interaction. So Maria says, gain trust is very important in any type of relationship. Okay. One, Maria, I agree with you. You have to gain the trust. You have to lay the groundwork. You have to do the non-sexual things to build the trust before you even get to the sexual level. And building trust is generally do what you say you're going to do. Right? And make her feel safe. Make him feel safe. You should feel safe when you have sex. All right, Monte says, how many asks before you give up? If we're still talking about the coffee gal, then, I mean, one, and then you have to give it some time. It's like going for a job interview, right? You can go for the job interview, and then you can, if you haven't heard from them in like 3 days, you can give a follow-up call and say, hey, I was just checking to see if y'all had filled this position. And I would really look forward to working for your company. Sometimes they'll be like, yes, you've got the job. And sometimes like, oh, we're still deciding. So if you waited 3 days for the first call, and remember, we're talking about a job interview here. This is a metaphor. Then wait a week before you call again. And I don't mean call her, people, like don't get super literal on me. I mean, you need to give it some time before you try to ask again. And then if they say no that time, then you wait a little bit longer. Sex, job interviews, dating, work, it's all just human behavior and negotiation. So, yeah, I would ask and see how it lands. If we're talking about intimacy or the barista, whatever, ask and see how it lands and see what their response is. If it is a negative, wait a little while and then bring it back up. But don't bring it up like in a real douchey way. Like, yeah, I asked for this last time and you weren't into it, so I'm going to ask again. Like, because that's going to be an automatic no. Like, you're just going to be a member of the Never Touch a Booby tribe at that point. So repackage it, because it's about packaging. And then you're going to say like, hey, I would really love for you to dress up for me. And I know you weren't comfortable with it last time, but maybe are you into maybe you picking out an outfit and wearing for me? Like, there's an aspect of control somewhere in there that they need to feel safe. And if it's a hard limit, respect the hard limit and move on. All right. Tony Atlas likes getting kicked in the face by women. What would be the point in that? I mean, some people really get off on that. There's people that pay good money for women to do that to them. So, I mean, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. And just let them do their thing. All right. Maria says, as many as you feel the need, and then just let it happen. Yeah. I mean, I do think though, like, ask as many times as you feel the need, but you're going to have to respect their no. If they say no, respect their no. People get in bad situations because they don't respect their partner's no. Like, and this could be about anything. Like, do you want to try Mexican food? No, I don't. So it could be that. It could be in the bedroom. It could be whatever. Respect the no. Okay. So what is the sexiest thing your partner could do for you? I feel like that is also a good place to start. What is the sexiest thing that your partner can do for you? Because if there's something that's super sexy that they do that you already like and they already like, you can build off that, right? Packaging is about finding something that starts a conversation and then build off of that. So if she is the best sword swallower you've ever dated, and that is something that she really likes to do, and you also enjoy the benefits of it, be like, hey, you know, when you do that for me, like, I would really like to watch you in the mirror. I would really like to do this, like whatever it is. Start with something that already happens well and then build off of that one. All right. Man, I like it. Y'all commenting on it. It's so much more fun to teach a class when people ask. It is so much more fun to do any kind of lecture when people are participating. I'm just saying. All right. The sexiest thing that I think a partner can do for you, since no one's brave enough to answer that question quite yet, is, let's see. I think it's really sexy when people read for you, but I'm a super nerd. So like, read to me. It really didn't even have to be a dirty book. It could just be any book. Like, I just want to sit there and listen to you read. It's like, I think some of the non-sexual things are really sexy and then get me in the mood. So, let's see. Benny says he dated a woman who got turned on when I would talk about work. She was turned on by confidence and intelligence. See, not all women are like that. Not all men are like that. You have to find what works for you. But if you find something that they really like and they think is sexy, I mean, that should be like in the top 3 of your repertoire, right? Like that should be in your top 3. If she loved hearing about your work, man, I would drop little comments in here and there because really it's just foreplay at that point, right? You're just sprinkling that arousal in so that at the end of the day, you get the reward. Jason says, I used to like it when my woman would wear a sundress and nothing underneath. Jason, I think you and a lot of men like the sundress with nothing underneath. Like that's no shade. I just mean like, I think that's a big winner for a lot of people. That's what I mean. Walt says, I like it when she can do more than just lay there. Well, I mean, same, right? Nobody, like no man or woman or other wants to do it with someone that doesn't really want to be there. Like I could get a blow up doll if I wanted that, right? I picked a human person with, all the parts so that they would do something with all of this, right? Yeah. Maria says, when you both are so into it and the sexual peak keeps climbing. Yes. When you are both really into it, there is no top of the mountain. You just keep going up. And if you are adventurous and open-minded, that generally leads to a lot of fun exploration and open conversations. Like honestly, going on a road trip and just asking a bunch of like sexual questions is one, an adventure because you never know what you're going to find. And 2, it's really good foreplay so that whenever you get to the end of wherever you're going on this road trip, it's generally a good time in whatever motel room you stop at. Walt, if you're still doing all the work, like I want to make a joke. I want to say something, but then I also don't want to offend you. Yeah. I mean, no, I won't say it. Okay. Just if you are just like, don't be with someone if you're just doing all the work, right? Because if you're just doing all the work, you might as well just be masturbating. If you're with somebody and you want them to actively participate, tell them, use a different position. There are lots of us gals out there that like to be a pretty princess and just lay there and take it. But she could make noise. She could bend her legs. She could do stuff. So, there's some things you could roll over and put her on top. Like, try something different. Jason says, for some reason, when my girlfriend would act like a goofball, it was a turn on. Of course it's a turn on when she acted like a goofball because she was being authentic and she wasn't being a fake girl, right? Authentic people are the best because if I wanted a fake person, I would go to some place where a lot of wealthy people were. This is nothing against wealthy people. I just mean there are a lot of fake people in those places, okay? Because people are performing and they're doing a certain thing. Goofy girls are a turn on because they just do whatever. Like, I'm going to make your life an adventure. There may be times where you wish it wasn't such an adventure, but I'm going to make an adventure because I'm goofy and I do stuff. Right. So I like that. Okay. Walt dates a lot of heavyset women, and like heavy girls can get down too. Okay, Walt, you said one chick was so big you could hear your bed frame crack. I mean, you're at least half of the weight, dude. So like, it's not all her. And try the couch. You know, pretentious attitudes and vapid behavior are definite turnoffs. They are for you. And I don't mean anything by that. I just mean that there are some guys that probably really get going by that. Some gals that really get going by like that. You just never know. There is literally someone out there for everyone. For every weird kink that you've ever heard, there is someone that is happy to put on that gimp suit. So just know that. But I'm glad that you know your turn-ons and turn-offs, because I don't think a lot of people understand that or are not mentally calculating that list as they move through adulthood. Like, ooh, I really like that. Or no, I don't like that. I don't like people that act like that. Or I do like this. Most of the time, we know what we don't like before we know what we do like. If I ask you, what do you want for dinner? And this is not a girl guy joke. If I ask you what you want for dinner and you say, I don't know, tell me what you don't want for dinner, because I guarantee there's some things on that list that you do know. All right. Maria says, make it a sexual place and explore it. Be creative. Agreed. And also, here's the other thing. Guys explore their bodies all the time. From the time they're first realizing that they got a dick, right? They're exploring it all the time. Women, not so much. Now, women do think about sex just as much as men. It's just in a much different way. And so a woman that is exploring her body by herself, that has sex toys, that knows what she likes, stuff like that, that is because she's taking control of her own orgasm, and she's probably already given herself several before you've even walked in the room. And she's going to be more open-minded to certain things because she's curating her sexual desire every day. And you have to make her feel safe enough to do that. You make your girl feel safe and secure in you, that you're not going to hurt her and like be just a douchebag, and more other things will come for you. Okay. I'm just saying. And it's the same for girls with guys. To be safe enough to be vulnerable for sex, you have to cultivate that safety. That's just my opinion. So another thing that people start exploring is kink in power dynamics. So is any of my people in the chat exploring a power dynamic in the bedroom? You know, who's in charge, who's not in charge, all that stuff, because that can also add a layer of adventure to your sex life. Lots of people are, I think, exploring it more. And if you have ever wondered, look on TikTok and look at the Book Talk girls. There is a multi-billion-dollar industry with romance novels, and there has been since I can remember it. Back in the 80s, when women in the supermarket were reading those tawdry romance novels. If you want to know what a woman wants, read a fucking book. There's literally tons of them out there. Ask your girl, what kind of books do you like to read? And then ask her to give you one and then read it. Or, this is my favorite, ask her to earmark the page of something she would like to recreate. Because there's probably some really dirty scene in a book that turns her on that she would like to do. It's a way to start a conversation because it's not her saying that she wants to do it. It's in this book, right? Maria says, just take turns and be expressive. That's true. That's true. People need to take turns and they need to be expressive. But I mean, we have people that can't, like, even in their couples, they can't talk about sex without getting like giggly 13-year-old boys. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're a 13-year-old boy. But if you're grown up enough to get naked with somebody and have sex, you're grown up enough to have a conversation about sex. And so we need to normalize that. That's what I really want to do. That's what I do with the other podcast that I have, the Sex Symbol podcast. We're just trying to start conversations. It's generally us being goofy, but it's just starting conversations. This is just another outlet for my goofiness and to help you guys talk about stuff. If at the end of the day, the only thing you're talking about is this weird blonde chick that we saw on the internet talking about sex, that's fine. At least I started a conversation. Maybe it leads to some other stuff, but maybe it leads to some really good stuff too. All right, last question. Well, do y'all have a question for me? I've been just talking nonstop. Some of you have been chiming in, and I appreciate that more than you know. I asked ChatGPT what the top sex questions were. I wasn't impressed. Nope. Everybody wants to know about frequency. And what I asked it was the top sex questions people ask a therapist. Everybody wants to talk about frequency. How many times a week do you have sex? So that's a big one. Is it normal to fantasize about people? That's another one. Oh, Jason, I'm sure you'll think of something. Let's see. And y'all can always bring it to next week's show because this is going to be a weekly show until people shut it down. Okay, so how often do we want to have sex? Let's see. Is it normal to fantasize about other people? Can we reignite our sex life after having kids? Yes, you can. Yes, it's okay to fantasize about people and have sex as much as you feel safe and into it to do it. Maria says, just take the time limit off of how long, how many days, etc. Oh, I agree. People are operating in a lack mentality, right? So they're like, oh, I haven't had sex in forever. And it's like, I mean, you could have sex with yourself. Like, it's not your partner's responsibility, right? So you could have sex with yourself anytime you want. So there's not a lack of sex. There's a lack of the kind of sex that you want. That's different. And you can just Sometimes life gets in the way. We get really, really bogged down by adult things like life, bills, whatever, and people don't feel sexy. So go do something that's fun. Do something fun together. And sex blooms out of fun. People forget how to have fun and play. And sex is the way that adults play. So go do something fun, and it may lead to more romantic things. All right. Benny says, is it safe to say better quality leads to more quantity? Yeah. I mean, it depends, right? Lousy sex is still sex. But if you have a really good experience, oh, you want to recreate that more, right? I feel like everybody's chasing a high with sex. And that's what sex is. It's like people that go to the gym all the time and like, oh, I feel so good after the gym. And that's the reason they go to the gym. Well, people have sex because of how it makes them feel. And so their good sex makes you want more sex. Yeah. So I think that's fair. Okay. Let's see. Why does sex feel routine or boring? Because you're just going through the motions and you're not having fun and you're not having an adventure. Boring sex is not fun sex. So if you do the same position every time and it's okay, a lot of people turn it into their nighttime routine, right? They like eat dinner, they shower, they do whatever, they brush their teeth. And right before they go to sleep, they have sex. If it's part of something like that, it can very easily get boring. If it's still, you can still make it fun if it's right before bed. But if it's boring for you, flip your routine on its end. Instead of having nighttime sex, have morning sex. Have afternoon sex. Like just vary the time. Like vary the activity. And here's a novel idea. Doesn't matter if you're a girl or a guy. Maybe just do something for your partner and don't expect anything in return and see what kind of energy grows out of that. So, for all of you out there that joined in tonight, I super appreciate you for being here with me on this wild ride of the inaugural show of the Climax Consultants. I promise it will get better because, good things take time and practice. And I will see you next week. And so bring your questions, all right? Because that's your homework. Bring your questions. See you later.